Christina, thank you so much for hopping on. We've been licking our chops to be quite honest. When it comes to this day, we didn't think we'd see it. Perhaps there's something that we're missing, but we've decided to just take the W and to say this is good. This is a good result. Perhaps we're missing something. I'd love to get your legal take.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. It's one of those things where you go, okay, well, I'll take the win and, let's move forward. But I don't want to pretend like this is justice. Certainly, there's an aspect of justice that was done here. Hunter Biden was guilty of what he was accused of, which was lying on his form when he purchased this gun. He checked the box saying he was not addicted or not using any drugs. And in fact, he was addicted to crack cocaine and probably some other substances. So that's a win. That's great. But what about all of the FARA violations? What about all of the foreign dealing? What about all of the money and the potential bribery pay-to-play schemes that the Biden family was using? I don't want to forget about that. Yes, I want to take the win and say, great, some element of justice was done. But let's not pretend like he's off the hook. And if you remember from early in the case, they were actually trying to give him a plea deal where he could never be charged with all of the other crimes he's committed, which are substantially more significant than what we're seeing here. So not trying to be too zealous in this, but it's a good result, but I don't think we're done yet.
I mean, I like going on offense. This very much is like a Clue game where the most obvious game of Clue, like the crack cocaine's on the gun, like the crack's on the gun. The federal government presented the evidence. You can see the crack on the gun. We have the photos. We put it up on the show. So yeah, it's like the most obvious game of Clue, and they got it right. I just never thought that I'd see a member of the ruling class and a member of the Biden family, especially in a Wilmington courthouse, face a guilty verdict and a unanimous guilty verdict.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things potentially going on. And of course, I don't know, I wasn't a juror, so I don't know what they were thinking or how they were deliberating. But one, I think to your point, the evidence was so overwhelming that I don't think, anybody who wanted or was willing to do mental gymnastics to pretend like Hunter Biden wasn't guilty and that this is somehow a sympathy case for an addict. The evidence was so overwhelming, you could not make those leaps. You couldn't make those jumps to say, you know what, let's let him off on this one. The other aspect, I heard another commenter say on this that I thought was very interesting was maybe the jury just is aware of what's going on and was like, if we don't convict him, all hell is going to break loose, because everybody can see how biased the justice system has become, that maybe they were just like, we have to convict him. Like, we can't, and could you imagine if they actually came back and acquitted, if they gave Hunter Biden an acquittal? I mean, like heads would explode. So, I don't know what happened in the jury room. I think it's probably somewhere in between that, but he was guilty and they came to the right verdict, and I'm grateful for it.
So your former boss, Donald Trump, has a statement out from the official campaign account. Hunter Biden has a statement out. The statements are quite different, but the statement from the campaign account effectively matching what you said earlier, that there needs to be real accountability for the real crimes here, which is you were acting on behalf of Ukraine and Kazakhstan and Russia and China, and you weren't declaring that, and then you were acting against the United States by, one of the deals was selling off our natural resources to China, trying to sell an LNG port in Houston and give all of our natural gas to our geopolitical enemy in China. I mean, this was just one of the many schemes. The $3 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife, and so on and so forth. And so I guess my question to you is, from a legal perspective, what accountability can still happen with the Bidens? Could a special counsel be appointed on January the 20th, 2025, when Donald Trump is sworn into office?
Well, sure. I think there's a lot of evidence out there that there are very significant, there's very significant indicators that the Biden family was committing significant crimes, collaborating with our adversaries, collaborating with China, with Russia, with Kazakhstan, with Ukraine, with all of that. And to the extent that they want to claim, some sort of statute of limitations, I think there's plenty of statute of limitations arguments. One, depending on the crime, that you don't pick a crime and then try to investigate to match the crime. You have to just investigate and see what comes out. We don't know exactly what would come out, so we can't really get into any statute of limitations issues until we know what the evidence actually points to. And then to the extent that there is a statute of limitations issue, I think that the fact that the Bidens were in control of the Department of Justice, they're not going to prosecute themselves. So I think there's very reasonable possibility to try to toll any potential statute of limitations. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of the crimes are egregious enough that you don't need to worry about the statute of limitations.
Yeah, that's very interesting, especially coming from you, because you've served in such a capacity for the president, as somebody who's been on his legal defense and represented and presumably in a second Trump administration. Perhaps you'd be there at the DOJ looking into these things. Can you talk me through your last comment there? Because you just said maybe there is no statute of limitations. Can you unpack that for us?
Sure. Well, and I can't speak for Donald Trump. I don't know what he's going to do and what he's going to appoint and try to investigate. But as far as Americans that are concerned and say, hey, we want Hunter Biden and whoever was selling information to our adversaries, we want them held accountable, I think they should be investigated. And I think you need either a special counsel or, imagine that, just the Department of Justice doing their job, investigating into foreign dealings. I think there needs to be an investigation into what occurred. And then as that investigation unfolds, then you figure out, what you want to do with it. But and Donald Trump, when he's back in office, he can appoint whoever he wants and handle. I want to be careful about it, because I'm not in any way trying to say they prosecuted us, let's go prosecute them. Like, I think that's a very slippery slope that I want to be very careful with and not, charge forward with that. But we do have to come up with some way that people are held accountable, because for far too long, conservatives have said, shucks, we don't hold our political opponents accountable. So we're going to, keep letting everybody get away with everything. And before you know it, you have record-setting indictments, you have record-setting criminal convictions on both sides, whether it's the first son or, the leading candidate on the Republican side. It descends into chaos. And so we have to get back to justice. We have to get back to accountability. However, Donald Trump chooses to facilitate that, I fully support him. But at the bare minimum, I think we need investigations into all of these foreign dealings, what actually happened. The fact that the Department of Justice has had Hunter Biden's laptop since 2019, they knew the contents, they knew that it was real. They had 51 intelligence officials who lied to the American public for the purpose of swaying the outcome of the 2020 election, which, based on polling in, say, December of 2020, said, had the public known that the laptop was real, they would have voted differently. And that alone changed the outcome of the election. So all of what has happened in the last 4 years, the chaos that has descended on this nation, is directly tied to all of this, and it all needs to be investigated.
You bring up such a great point, Christina. It's such a profound point. Like, the use of the special counsel, if you look back at, like, Russiagate, for instance, and I deign to say it, but that exonerated Donald Trump entirely, right? The issue was shot dead forever. After you should be okay with a special counsel investigation into the Clinton Foundation, into Jeffrey Epstein, into the Bidens. If you are innocent, then you have nothing to hide, as President Trump would regularly say. And the 3 years, I know it was a big pain in the ass, but the special counsel truly exonerated Donald Trump entirely of that hoax. And so the system, in that, I guess, regard, worked. I would never want that again, but but yeah, sure. Appoint every special counsel there is. Let's find the answers, right? If you're innocent, you have nothing to hide.
Right. And certainly you want to make sure that if you're appointing a special counsel or doing investigation, the point is to investigate. The point is not to target a person and say, what crime can we say this person committed, which is what they've done to Donald Trump, and say, we want to investigate how Donald Trump colluded with Russia. Okay, no. what you need to do is look at the facts and say, okay, we have information that money from China ended up in Joe Biden's bank account, and that there's money from Kazakhstan that ended up in Hunter Biden's control and possession with his business partner Devin Archer and Bobulinski and all of this stuff. Just investigate the information, and then when you come to the conclusion, that's when you figure out who you should charge. It's not appointing a special counsel to investigate Joe Biden. It's appointing a special counsel to investigate illegal foreign dealings within the United States government. We all know the conclusion will likely be Joe Biden, but you can't start with that premise.
So the president will face off in days with Joe Biden on a debate stage. I know this is putting you on the spot here, but how would you advise him to talk about this issue of Hunter Biden? He has brought it up on a debate stage with Joe Biden before Hunter Biden.
Donald Trump? How would Donald?
Mm-hmm.
I think Donald Trump. I cannot in any way try to advise Donald Trump on this. He is the master at this. He has the most amazing instincts, and he handles this so well. I think the statement that they put out really is threading that needle and is hitting the point that needs to be hit, which is, that's great. We got the win. It's great that, the jury held Hunter Biden accountable, but this isn't what he needs to be held accountable for. And I think that's the vein that he needs to go down. As far as how he does that, Donald Trump is the master of this. That's why they don't like him. They don't like his mean tweets. They don't like the fact that he's very he's crafty and he's funny, and he comes up with funny things on the fly, and they don't like that. And I anticipate that he'll do that on the debate stage. It'll be great. It'll be a show. I have no idea why they're letting Joe Biden do it unless they have something planned. Like, Donald Trump's going to run circles around him, but it'll be fun for us. Yeah,
that's right. Joe Biden, every single week, Joe Biden has a new gun criminals event at the White House, and talking about how horrible gun crime is in the country. And well, now it hits home, Joe. Now,
yeah.
So Hunter Biden might be sentenced to 25 years. We'll see what happens in the tax case in California.
Yeah.
I want to get your comments on the sentencing of President Trump just days before the GOP convention in New York. Just shifting gears here.
Yeah.
What is your thoughts on that? What do you believe will happen? Is there a strategy there?
Sure. Well, his trial team in New York, I'm sure, has a strategy. I think they want to confine him in some way. I don't know that they will end up doing that, but you can see what they want to do by hearing the liberal pundits in these mainstream medias that are like, "Oh, Donald Trump in jail." They get so excited about it. And it's like, okay,
it's like a psychosexual fetish for these people. Yeah,
it totally is the most bizarre thing. They come up with the craziest dreams and schemes that they want to happen and talk about them on television, and then none of them ever actually materialize. So I think they want to confine him in some way, but I don't think they will. I think they know it's bad for the country. I think they know it's bad. Quite honestly, it's bad for the election. But if they do try to do that, the $400 million that Donald Trump has raised in the last few days will look like pennies compared to what happens. The convention in Milwaukee will be the biggest blowout convention that the RNC has ever seen. I think the support for Donald Trump at that point, at that point, it's just like, it's just fun because you can see the government scrambling, and it's just kind of fun to be the little guy when you see the government scrambling, right? And
yes.
And I say that as far as like from a voter's perspective. Voters want to be the one that's like, yeah, we're taking on the man, right? Well, that they're making it pretty clear that that's what's happening right now. So I think anything they try to do to him will backfire massively. So I think they should recognize that by this point. They've only had about 10 years to figure that out. So I don't think that they'll actually confine him or really do anything too substantial. But if they do, it will only be a boost for Donald Trump.
All right. Well, I wanted to give. You seem like every time you're on the program, Christina, you seem like you're such you faced so much on behalf of the president. You've faced so much. We would call it like truly the heart of darkness or evil. Yeah. And you're always chipper. You're always cheerful. You're like optimistic, sunny side up, glass half full, silver linings. And so I'd love to give you, just in closing here, an opportunity to like tell us what's the path forward. 5 months to the general election. Crazy. You know Donald Trump about as well as anybody. Have worked for him legally for years. Can you give us sort of a trajectory and an outlook forward through the general?
Well, I think Democrats are desperate. I think they're going to do a lot of desperate things to try to scare us. I mean, I've seen it up close and personal that they work very hard to scare you to voluntarily surrender your rights. They want to scare you out of participating and being part of government and trying to hold your government leaders accountable. And so I think they're going to try to make it scary because that's the only tactic that they really know how to use. And for so long, we've fallen for it. So I think, we're going to see some things where they're going to try to make it dark. But I absolutely believe Donald Trump is going to prevail. I believe truth prevails. I do not believe America is over. I think we have our best days are ahead of us. I truly, truly believe that, even though I'm looking down the barrel of 9 felony indictments myself. And I do believe that our best days are ahead of us, but it takes all of us getting involved. So I just want to push out there to everybody watching, get involved in your local elections, sign up with your county officials, with your state GOP or your county GOPs or a grassroots organization. I know, Benny, you work closely with Turning Point. They're great. Get involved because this is an all hands on deck moment. It's going to take every single one of us to right this ship, but we will right it.
Yeah. Wow. You love to hear it. I mean, it's uplifting, and you have been through so much. You do have the greatest avatar in all social media, ladies and gentlemen. You must go follow 300,000 Americans. Can't be wrong. Christina Bob, who's just an absolute fighter, and man, that's just a great. I mean, second only to the. Let's get a Christina Bob mugshot printed off up in the studio.
I love
thank you so much for being so fearless. Bravery is probably the rarest element ever to be found naturally in the political world.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you using your platform.
Thank you, Christina. Godspeed.